You ever think about how one decision decades ago could change everything? Well, what if India's entire energy future was decided way back 70 years ago? Today, we're going to dig into this incredible story, a bold, almost forgotten vision for how to power the nation.
It really all boils down to this one powerful idea for a national gas grid. This is the story of a huge opportunity, one that was dreamed up, fought for, and then, for decades, was just lost to history.
So why should you care about this now? Well, take a look at this. It's almost uncanny. On the one hand, you have the energy issues we're facing today, war in West Asia disrupting gas supplies, and on the other, the 1973 oil shock. It's like history is repeating itself, you know? It's basically the same problem, 50 years apart, that has everyone scrambling to find other energy sources. And you know, in response to today's crisis, India is pushing a really big solution, the National Coal Gasification Mission. But what if I told you this new solution isn't new at all? That's really the big question we're tackling in this explainer. We're about to uncover a story that doesn't start in the 2020s, but actually way back in the 1950s.
All right, so let's get into it. Let's meet the visionary at the very heart of this story, a man named Syed Husain Zaheer. Back in 1955, he was the director of a research lab in Hyderabad, and he proposed this really radical plan for a national gas grid based on some pretty cool technology. And that technology was coal gasification. Now, to put it simply, it's just a process that takes solid coal and turns it into a clean fuel gas that you can pipe around, kind of like natural gas. It was a genius way to unlock the massive energy potential sitting in India's huge coal reserves, but in a totally new way.
And the process itself is actually pretty elegant. First, you gasify the coal using high pressure. Then you clean it up. You got to get the sulfur and all of the other gunk out of there. And what you're left with is this clean, high-energy fuel, all ready to be piped straight into people's homes and into factories.
Now, Zaheer wasn't just some dreamer with his head in the clouds. He started with a super practical, testable plan. It was called the Town Gas Supply Scheme. The idea was to prove the whole concept worked by building a gasification plant at the Singareni coalfields and then piping that fuel 290 kilometers to Hyderabad. A brilliant proof of concept, really.
But you know how it goes. Having a visionary idea is one thing. Actually making it happen is a whole different ballgame. Zaheer's dream was about to smash headfirst into a wall of resistance, and that kicked off a struggle that lasted for more than a decade.
Okay, this timeline, wow. It just lays out what an incredibly frustrating journey this was. So, the idea gets proposed in 55. It gets the Prime Minister's backing by 61. You'd think that's the green light, right? Nope. It takes until 1962 for Zaheer to even get into a position to really push for a pilot plant. And then, just as things are finally getting started, it gets completely shut down in 1966.
So, who was putting up the fight? The battle lines were pretty clear. On one side, you had Zaheer and his supporters, including Prime Minister Nehru himself. But on the other side, you had this really formidable wall of institutional resistance. The Ministry of Mines, the Planning Commission, and eventually, even the new leadership at his own organization, the CSIR.
And the support from the very top was crystal clear. Nehru called it modern, economical. He even saw it as a way to take a huge load off India's railways, which were constantly hauling massive amounts of coal all over the country. This is what makes the fact that it failed so much more dramatic.
The hurdles they faced were just immense. I mean, you've got wars with China and Pakistan, a currency crisis, all kinds of bureaucratic delays, including a pretty damning committee report. But the craziest part of all, the special machinery they imported from Germany for the pilot plant, it just sat there, unopened, in crates, for 7 years. It's just an unbelievable symbol of a dream totally stalled out.
And then, right when it seemed like the project was dead and buried for good, a massive global crisis came along and suddenly proved that Zaheer had been right all along, in the most spectacular way you can imagine. October 1973, the OPEC oil embargo hits, and it sends these massive shockwaves across the entire globe. Oil prices basically quadrupled overnight. For a country like India that imports a lot of oil, it was an absolute catastrophe. Everything changed.
And this, right here, is the real emotional gut punch of the story. Years later, Prime Minister Indira Gandhi herself admitted what a historic mistake it was. This quote, it's just this powerful moment of vindication, a recognition that there was another path they could have taken, a path that might have shielded the entire nation from that crisis. So where does all of that history leave us today? Well, that lost legacy wasn't entirely lost. It turns out it planted a seed that is now finally getting a chance to grow.
The original plant did eventually get built, but by then it had a new purpose. It became this crucial testing ground for more advanced technologies, like integrated gasification, or IGCC, which helped lay the groundwork for what was to come next.
And that brings us full circle, right back to today. India's National Coal Gasification Mission is basically Zaheer's vision, but resurrected on a massive scale. We're talking a goal of gasifying 100 million tons of coal by 2030, with a huge investment behind it and a whole new public company to drive it. So yeah, this is definitely not some little pilot project anymore. This is a national priority.
Which leaves us with one final, and I think pretty provocative question. After a 70-year journey of vision, resistance, failure, and then finally vindication, this old idea is getting a second chance. The big question for all of us is, will this time be different?